everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to do a good old eyeshadow palette tag. I haven't done a makeup tag in a while and I saw It's Just Steph posted this a few weeks ago and she does it every year. This one is created by Samantha March and Alice Glines. They created it a few years ago and I feel like I've already done it. So I think if I can find the video on my channel, because I'm pretty sure I've done this tag before, I will link it up above because it might be interesting to see what I previously said. Although I wouldn't encourage you to see my older videos because it does give me secondhand embarrassment. However, if you want to, you can. I wanted to do this because my eyeshadow collection has changed, obviously, over the years. A lot of palettes that I had back in the day, I no longer have in my collection because I have had to let them go because they just got simply too old or moldy. And so I have quite a different collection these days. And also, I'm actually really happy with my collection. I feel like I have a really good selection of palettes and brands that I actually really enjoy and like. And for the most part, I'm very pleased with everything I have. So let's get into it because I've already filmed this video and yeah, I'm refilming it. How fun. Okay, so the first prompt is newest palette in your collection. I actually have two new palettes in my collection. I did just get an order come in from Lunar Beauty, which I have never tried Lunar Beauty before. And yeah, I'm not based in the US, so shipping cost a fortune, So I did end up actually getting two palettes because I just felt like it made more sense because since I was going to spend so much money on just one palette. So I really wanted to get the Moonshroom palette. Yeah, the Moonshroom palette, which actually is a new palette for this year as well. So it kind of fits with the prompt perfectly because it's new to me and it's a relatively new palette just in the last month. Although that's pretty old, right? Because palettes come out every week and you're like, oh, this is so last month. But I just got this a few days ago and I did actually try it just yesterday in a look. I am going to be doing a 3 looks 1 palette because I want to. And if you decide to watch that, that's great. I'm hopefully going to be posting that next week. But yeah, just done the first look with it. And I really liked it. I wanted this palette because I really love the grungy tones of it. I love the grungy greens, the grungy yellows, like the mustard yellows. But then it has like pops of purples. I actually did a purple look yesterday. I didn't even go into all the grunginess that I want to do, but I did go into this shade, which is really, really stunning and probably going to be my favorite shade of the palette. It's called Magic Mushroom. So, But yeah, I know Angie went into this yellow because I just watched her video last night on this and it looked quite patchy. She went into this shade, which I haven't gone into, and oh my gosh, it looked so patchy. I was like, oh no. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still excited to use this and I never tried the formula. It's a little bit surprising. I didn't think that these shimmers would be as soft as they are because I did go into this one as well yesterday. I didn't think they would be as soft, but they are really, really soft. Yes, I actually I went into this one, and this one yesterday, and then this matte and this matte. So really barely used any of it so far, but I will be having a video very shortly on that one. So the second palette that I bought when I bought that one is the Nude Prism because I kind of wanted this one. It was launched last year and I was humming and ahhing about it, and then I was so put off by the shipping last year. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. But I had a little bit of wobble earlier this month and I was feeling really down and I don't know, I just really wanted to buy some makeup. So I did it and I'm glad that I did, to be fair. This is a very, very neutral palette. It's a really beautiful everyday wear. I mean, I think a lot of people were saying this is like perfect for like weddings and stuff. I don't really know, I haven't tried it, but yeah, a lot of these tones are really stunning. I could use it every day. Probably more of your boring palette, but I really wanted to try it and I was there and the palettes are so beautiful. I didn't realize that it actually is not flat. So it does have like a bump here. So when you stack them, it's kind of annoying. So that was interesting to find out, but I do love it. I do think he's put a lot of work into his brand. So I'm not a huge fan of Manny MUA. I really am not, but I don't know. I thought the palettes looked interesting, so I wanted to try them. All right, so moving on to my oldest palette. This was a little bit trickier because my oldest technically is the Miss Bliss palette. However, I did end up depotting all of those singles into this big magnetic palette. So I can't show you, but she's in here somewhere. Like a lot of these peachy tones are from her and maybe a couple of these ones as well. So she's in here. She's definitely my oldest palette at the moment because I think it would have been maybe 1 or 2 others, but I did end up decluttering them. So I no longer have them. However, technically the oldest palette in my collection that I still have in my collection, and it's still a palette, is this one, the Jackie Aina from ABH. I love this palette, I do. This was my first time trying ABH when I bought it a few years ago. And I did a first impressions on my channel. When I first started my channel, again, I would go to those videos with caution because they're rough. They are rough. Not that my videos are really any better, but I feel like just in terms of me doing my makeup was pretty rough too, but I was having fun and playing around. I still really like this palette. I think it's beautiful. It performs beautifully. It hasn't gone bad yet at all. You know, my Norvina palette, for instance, is really, really powdery and kicks up, and this one has never had that issue, and it still doesn't have that issue. In fact, Ginger took me ages to hit pan on with a teeny tiny pan because it just doesn't have a lot of fallout. So I really like this palette, and I'd love to get more use out of it, but definitely my oldest palette now. Okay, moving on to most expensive. I would say that if I don't include shipping and taxes, then my most expensive palette is the Retro from Natasha Denona. I only have one of her palettes. I don't have any Pat McGrath palettes or anything because I cannot bring myself to spend all of that money because it is a extortionate amount. It's just ridiculous. And also I've swatched those palettes in store in Sephora and I really didn't like them. So anyway, I do like it. It's not my favorite palette in my collection. Did I need to spend it and buy it? No. But I really wanted to know what her quality was like. Everybody seems to love Natasha Denona. I don't really care either way. I don't have any issues with her quality. I think her cream to powder shades are beautiful, and I don't think that Alter Ego has been able to master the quality of those because obviously a lot of their palettes are dupes of Natasha Denona's. So I feel like she's far superior in that department, and I think the shimmers are really beautiful and stunning. Are they like in your face impactful? Not all of them, but sometimes that's not what you want. So I do understand why people love her. But at the same time, I don't. But I only have this one palette, so I haven't tried everything. But I don't know. I don't think I would try more, to be fair, unless the prices go down. Okay, so I think these two are my most affordable. I almost pulled my Revolution Dangerous in Love because I do think that was like £12, but I think these are cheaper. So I have the She Glam from Virtuous Virgo. Obviously it's She Glam, so very inexpensive. It's the only palette that I have from She Glam. And I think this and their Freckle tint are the only two items that I have from She Glam. I don't think I have anything else. But yeah, I actually like this palette. I think it's a nice palette. It's obviously full on green. I thought this was going to be a lovely flaky shimmer, but it's more of a glitter, unfortunately, but that's kind of what you would expect. Although I'm not opposed to glitter because I do have a little bit on it today. I was trying to play around with my makeup. Freckles look a little bit of a mess on my nose. I did mess them up quite a bit, but we're going to ignore that. We're going to ignore it because I don't care. Anyway, so I like the grunginess of this, and also I bought it because I'm a Virgo, so I'm a little bit full of myself, and I wanted to buy a palette that has Virgo on it. So the second one I think is the least, like the most inexpensive in my collection is this one. This is the Circle of Life from Essence. It is a Lion King one, and yeah, this is more new. I bought this late last year. It's currently in my Pan Those Eyeshadows. One of the shades is in my Pan Those Eyeshadows. And I think the quality actually on this is really beautiful. I just don't remember the price, but I have a feeling it was like 10 euros. I think it was cheaper than £12. I think, well, I don't remember which one of these was the cheapest, so I put them both in. All right, then we have Everyday. This one, oh, it's a little tricky because I have so many everyday palettes, I can't pick them all. And so I picked the one that I'm literally using almost every day at the moment because it is in my project level up, and I have so many shades to use 3 times or more, and I have the 3 pans to hit. It's just, it definitely feels like an everyday palette for me, and I'm wearing it today on my eyes. So it is the Artemis from Alter Ego. And this is obviously the dupe from Natasha Denona. I don't have that palette, so I wanted to get this one. And yeah, it doesn't actually look that different from my last update because I have not been able to hit pan on anything. I'm hoping that over the weekend I can because I need to do my update for this next week. But yeah, I use this very regularly. I have to. I'm trying to use every single shade 3 times. It's taking forever. And I really do I like the greens. I like these yellows over here. Today I went into these 2 greens because I hadn't really used them. What I will say is I actually am quite, like I'm not a huge fan of their cream to powder, like I was saying. I don't think they're the same quality as a Tashadona. However, I was thinking just today, because I use Stealth and it's a really, really, really deep green, sort of in my outer V. And I was thinking, I'm so glad that this is not a powder, because otherwise I would have so much fallout, just because these types of shades literally go everywhere. Even if after you set your makeup, they end up just getting all over my nose. I don't know what's going on, but because it's a cream shade, it actually has no fallout. So I'm actually pleased that they did that. So in a way, I'm pleased that they did that. And yeah, I think it's my everyday at the moment. Will it be in a few months' time? Absolutely not, because I'll be so sick of it. But I'm glad I'm getting a lot of use out of it. All right, so we're moving on to most colorful. This is a newer palette for me, and I don't really have a lot of rainbow palettes. So for me, this is a really nice rainbow palette in my collection, and it is the Delicious Delights from Cosmic Brushes. I was gonna say What's the Beauty, it's Cosmic Brushes. This has got a lot of colors. You got your greens, you have your pinks, your purples, your blues, and some oranges. Obviously you don't have like really yellow, and the closest to yellow is this chartreusey green, but you don't have like a true yellow in here, so it's not like a full-on rainbow. However, and you don't have like a red. So it's still close enough for me to call it my version of a rainbow. And I have a lot of yellows in my collection, so I don't really need to have that, but it's so beautiful. And I had such pleasure using this palette, and I really found it versatile as well. Like every look that I did, I felt like it was different from the last one, and I didn't run out of ideas when I did my first impressions on this. So I really like this. I definitely think it's my most colorful palette in my collection. Okay, then we move on to smallest palette, and I have picked my little MAC. This is the Star Sighting Compact in the shade Fuchsia. It was a holiday edition, and yeah, I ended up getting this for Christmas one time. This actually could be my oldest palette. I don't know. I don't know if I had this before the Jackie Aina or not. I don't recall. But it's stunning. It's very pretty. I have 2 pans in here. Formula still works great. It's my only MAC palette that I have or ever have tried. I don't think I would buy more from MAC because of my preference. However, I don't have an issue with the quality. I like the more like sparkly, shiny stuff at the moment. Whereas they're more wearable shades, and I have a lot of wearable shades in my collection. So I don't know what I want. I don't know, but I like this. It's a small palette. And to be fair, I actually have some palettes that are 5 pans, but I feel like they're the Odensai, and they're a little bit longer. And this I feel like is just more compact. So for me, it's my smallest. All right, the wind is a bit crazy, so you might hear some wailing in the background, but my biggest palette is this one. This is the P. Louise Blend Away, and I've said this multiple times, this is just far too big. And also it is very neutral leaning with obviously pinks and purples, but yeah, tons of neutral shades in here. And oh, I think you just saw a spoiler from my pen, those eyeshadows. But anyway, it doesn't matter. So this one, this one is huge, humongous, and it's 50 shades. I had a look because I was thinking, well, actually, are my Beauty Beige palettes, you know, the Earthly palette, but that's only 42 shades only. I thought those were the biggest ones, but actually no, this is the biggest one with 50 shades. So yeah, quite enormous. I think the quality of P. Louise is actually really, really nice. I just find the packaging too much, and I feel like the shade ranges are too much as well. They could definitely edit them down, and because I don't think I'd miss half of those shades, because I think there's a lot of repetition in terms of tone. Maybe not quite color, but at the point that you put it on the lids and you blend it out, or you just use some other color, so you put shimmer over it. I mean, I do my eyeshadow probably the wrong way. At the point that my eyeshadow is done, do I really need all of those extra shades? I do not. Okay, so next up is Best Memory. I don't have too many palettes that have a lot of memory to them anymore, because I did end up decluttering a lot of my older ones, and generally the older ones have a lot of memory to them. I will say that the Urban Decay Stone Vibes potentially could have been rolled into this category because my mother gave it to me. That's really the only memory I have. So I've decided to go with the Norvina from ABH because This one I bought for my mother instead. I didn't buy it for myself. I gave it to her as a gift and she didn't want it, so she gave it back to me. She had it for a few months. She was like, I'm not using this. You should take it. And I do remember doing her makeup with this. So I have like a few memories of it, and it is obviously one of my favorite palettes in my collection. So I'm glad that she gave it to me. She likes more like brownie taupe, like neutral shades, like cooler taupe neutral shades, like bronze, I don't know. And this one obviously is just the wrong type of color story for her. All right, so worth the hype. I definitely could lean into a brand that I've mentioned a lot of times, but I'm gonna save them for another prompt. And I feel like, I don't know if this brand has a huge amount of hype, but obviously I think within the indie makeup world, they're highly regarded, I would say. I think so, and I think they're worth the hype, and I'm really glad that I tried them. I bought these two palettes from them. So I got the Killer Purr and the Pharaoh from Menagerie Cosmetics, and I definitely think these are worth it. I have never had any issues with the quality and like the formula of these, and I just think they're absolutely stunning. The shimmers are out of this world. The mattes blend beautifully. There might have been one actually that I had issues with. It might have been this dark one, or maybe it was in the Pharaoh where I just struggled to, yeah, maybe, I don't know. I don't recall. It was like, it's not enough to deter me from the brand at all, because I think that at the end of the day, they're really interesting color stories. I really love this palette. I think this is such a fun palette. It's just for me. And I don't know if you can tell, but this like changes color every time I look at it. It is so fun. This one also changes color. It's a really fun palette. This is a gorgeous gold, but it's like a grungy gold. It's not too bad. It's like a little bit greeny. It's so beautiful, this palette. And I think the brand itself is definitely, I don't know if they have a lot of hype or not, but I think they're definitely worth the hype. The Pharaoh for me is my least favorite out of the two, but I've never had any issues. And honestly, it might be my least favorite just because it has the 3 shimmers. Maybe it's like a little bit more matte heavy, and I'm more of a shimmer person. I don't know, but I still think the formula of these are really, really fun. I mean, this is actually a very colorful palette. This could have been one of my most colorful ones. If you look at it, it doesn't really have like a very light tone in there, but it has a lot of the colors except for blue, basically. But yeah, I really think these are worth the hype, like Menagerie Cosmetics, just from what I've tested out in terms of formula. And they're so easy to blend, those mattes, and I'm not somebody that wants to sit here for 20 minutes blending mattes. So if you're like me and a bit lazy with your makeup, they actually are stunning. Okay, moving on to not worth the hype. Ooh, this might be a little controversial, but I have mentioned this multiple times on my channel before, that I'm just very disappointed with this brand, and I just have never liked any of the palettes from them to the point where I feel like they're worth the hype, and it's Odin's Eyes. So the newest and last palette that I got was the Jewels and Gem palette from them. This is technically like their newer formula, because I had a few palettes that are their older formula, and everyone was like, try their new formula. So I did, and I still don't like it. Like, I will say, I'll give you this though. There is a couple shades in here that are really, really stunning. And then some other shimmers that are scratchy, dry, don't do much at all. And then the mattes are just okay. I will say, if they had all of their shimmers like this one is called Swoon. This is absolutely stunning. It's soft, it's reflective, it looks beautiful on the lids. If all of the shimmers were like that, then I would be behind them. I really would. And I would change my tune about them. However, I do not like their formula on everything else. It's just not for me. It's just, I don't know. You can definitely find some beautiful shades within their palettes, and I have been enjoying the Alva a little bit more recently, just because I've been using it quite a bit more and I've learned to like it. But when we come to like overhyped brands, I do think that they are overhyped. Obviously, they have a huge backing from a lot of influencers who have had all of the collaborations with them, and so they've grown to this huge, massive, you know, platform now where you would expect the world from them. But I do find that their shades are inconsistent. I think that's my biggest qualm with it. Like, I don't think the shades are consistent from palette to palette, even from new formula to old formula. The new formula I don't find is really any different from the old formula. I do probably suspect that the palettes that they collab with, like the Angie palettes, I'm sure probably have the higher quality formula, and that's why people are like enamored with the brand, which I've not tried those palettes. So I do believe that there are beautiful shades in those palettes and the color stories are beautiful, but I have just held back on buying from the brand because I've always been disappointed. Not one palette of theirs has been great for me. Okay, so moving on to my favorite palette from my favorite brand. At the moment, my favorite brand would be Gloss Gods. I can't deny that. I am a little bit of a broken record when it comes to them, so I do apologize. But I really do love their palettes. I have probably 4 or 5 of them at this point, and no, I think I have 6 of them. Or 7. I think I have the most from Gloss Gods. It's crazy. But I will say that my 2 favorite are Dancing in the Sky and Look for Rainbows. I always end up like gravitating towards these 2 before the others. They are both all shimmer palettes. Unfortunately, you cannot get the Dancing in the Sky anymore, which is so sad because I do think it is kind of my favorite. When you put these 2 side by side, I did a battle of the eyeshadow palettes a few weeks ago in my collection, and this one won. And I have to say, every time I tested the website when I was doing it, this one always won. So I do think it's definitely my favorite palette in my collection. I just think it's stunning. I love the greens. I love the tone of the greens. I love the fact that you have the yellows in there as well. And some of them do shift to purple too. So there is variety in here, but obviously it's an all shimmer palette. So if you don't vibe with all shimmer palettes, they do have other palettes with mattes and shimmers. I think their mattes are fine. I don't think they're out of this world, but I think their shimmers are definitely where the money is. So the Look for Rainbows, they actually still have this available. So I would recommend anyone to try this if it's something you want to do. Again, all shimmer, although these are less reflective. So you could potentially use these as like a base or some sort of matte shade somewhat, and then add on the topper shades. Some have a little bit more of a base than others. So there's definitely some that are pure topper shades and some that have a little bit more to them. But this one's really fun because obviously you have all the different colors, and there are some flips to this one too. So I don't know, I love these palettes, and I really do like the brand. I'm waiting for them to come out with some more color stories that I'm interested in. I keep checking and they still have the same. I think they have I have the Gal on Jupiter, but they have Gal on Mars, and then they have the one on the moon, which I don't think I'm gonna get, but they still look beautiful. Okay, and then last prompt is most used palettes. So I did have to filter through on my spreadsheet. I do try to track all of my uses on my eyeshadow, whether they're in a project or not. So even for my Shop My Stash palettes that I pull, the end of the month when I roll them out of my Shop My Stash, I do go through which shades that I used that month and I mark them down on my spreadsheet. So for the last few years, I've had a spreadsheet now tracking all of my use on all of my shades. And because I did end up decluttering quite a few of my older palettes, I think had I not done that, I'm pretty sure my e.l.f. Retro Paradise palette would have won this category. However, it's no longer in my collection, sadly, because I did do a pan that palette and there's just not really much to pan left. I just don't really want to. It's old. My most used palette at the moment, which actually was a surprise to me, is my Norvina from ABH. I know I use this palette a lot, but I don't feel like it's been in that many projects. I just think it's one that I've gone into a lot, either in a Shop My Stash or maybe a 3 Looks 1 palette. I think I did that last year. And then more recently, I did have it in my project level up. It was my level 2, so I got some use out of it then. I know it's been in my Pan Those eyeshadows previously before. So there has been times when I have used it, but I still was kind of surprised because, you know, it's never been in a project for very long. But I have marked how many times I've used this, and it's 145 times in total, which I don't know if that's good or bad or high or low, whatever, but that is my most used palette at the moment in my collection. And I think it looks used and abused. There's definitely times that I've used this before I started tracking it on my spreadsheet, so I'm sure it has more uses than that, but that's the case for a lot of my older palettes too. So yeah, I'm actually pleased because it's definitely one of my favorite palettes. So the fact that one of my favorite palettes is my most used palette makes sense in my brain. It was very close between that one and my second place. So I thought I'd do a little second place as well for my most used, which is my Canyon palette from Alter Ego. Now, this doesn't surprise me because I had it in my project level up and it was level 5. So I got a lot of uses, 5 uses on every single shade in here, or at least 5 uses. Some of them I had more because I had to hit pan, and these mattes took a long time to hit pan. The Alter Ego mattes, I would say, are pretty hard to hit pan on. Shimmer's a little bit easier, and the creams far easier too. So if you're going to try to hit pan in Alter Ego, I would go for the creams first, shimmers, then mattes. Unless you're just matte heavy, but I mean, I use mattes in my looks and it took me a long time to hit pan in these. They're pretty stiff. So anyway, this was second place with 141 uses. So very close to the Norvina, but that's it. That is my eyeshadow palette tag for this year. Maybe I'll do like It's Just Steph because she does this every year. I feel like copying her. So please go check out her video if you haven't already. But yeah, she heavily inspired me to redo this because I think it's fun to do, talk about your palettes in a different way. And also just like figure out like, you know, what is your most expensive? What is your cheapest at the moment? Which is the one that you've used the most recently or in total? And I don't know, I think it's fun. So if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. I would hope that you do. But otherwise, hope everyone is well and thank you so much for watching. Bye.